Chris Brogan, are you ready to fearlessly question today?
Go. Ask me fearless questions.
All right. Well, first, we'll kind of start things off slow. We'll let you ease into it. I want you to kind of give us your story as it relates to fearlessly questioning growing up in life and business and kind of what you might think people would want to hear.
Pretty much the whole time, I've always had this sense that there's the official way that things get done, and that just seems like the easy path. And then there's the way that might be more interesting or more fun or not exactly one size fits all. And I would say that that started at a very young age. When I was 6 years old, I got a bicycle, and I was trying to figure out how to ride it, and it was a little tricky for me. And I smashed into the house. And through tears, I looked at my mom and I said, move the house. Because in my mind, it was clearly the house's fault that I smashed into it, not me. And so that would pretty much set you up for every other choice and change that I've made in my entire business career ever since, which is that I think I know where I should be going, whether or not there's a house in the way.
That's a very interesting way to put it. As far as your house concerns go, I mean, what in business and life, what other houses have you run into that you've had a hard time moving or have an easier time moving than you expected, possibly?
I'll give you a really weird example. I used to work for directory assistance for the telephone company, which is, before Google was the only way you would ever look up a phone number. You would call 411. And there was a way that you were supposed to type things into the computer, and I found out that if you typed them in slightly differently, the answers would be much better refined, and they'd come up a little bit better. And so I was allowed to go present this to the district level board of people who care about these sorts of things, and I gave this whole presentation about how much faster my group was. I showed them all kinds of stats about how the whole team that I managed was doing this thing in a different way, how it was going to be so great and it would save time. And in call center environments, time is literally money. It is the, if you reduce time, you add money. So I presented it all, and they said to me, well, that's really great, but it would cost about like $80,000 to change out all the binders that we use to train everybody, and that would be like a lot of money. I was like, but you would do it once. You would only do it once, and then like forevermore, you'd get this time saving. So like we'd make it up in a few months' time, and they were like, no. I was like, oh, that's when I realized that really big businesses are silly sometimes, and that I had my life's work cut out for me, which is to try to convince businesses to do things a little smarter and a lot more human.
I want you to hold on to that thought because we're definitely going to get back to that in probably a little bit more detail. But before the fearless questions really start, first fearless question for you. Are you a beard lover or a lazy shaver?
I like beards. I was a big fan. I like them because first off, they help me not get carded a lot, if I'm going places because I look like a child. And then second, they set me apart from the other people that I'm talking to in business. I mean, there's a lot of organizations where a beard isn't exactly permitted or at least encouraged. And I would say that I love to go in there and say, ha, I'm not you. And that's a good starting point, and then help them understand that not only am I not them, but I'm just like them if they could change themselves a little bit.
I would have guessed that as well, judging by the established nature of the beard. You're not messing around with it. It feels substantial.
And if you haven't seen my dad, his beard is like that.
Okay. So
he
you
looks like
come from
Santa.
a long lineage of good beard growers. Is that it?
That would be true.
All right. We'll get a little serious here, and I'll stop freaking you out a little bit, probably. But the question that kind of I set this whole thing up for, and the question that I want to know the answer to is, what do you think it is that prevents us, you, me, everybody else, from, doing or seeing where we need to grow up? How can we kind of identify these things? Why do we not, and why do we ignore them even when we do kind of are made aware of them?
Like pretty early on from childhood, you're told to fit in. Like, stop doing that. No one else is doing that. Why are you doing that? Nobody else is doing that. There is a huge system in place that doesn't want you to do anything different than it. They want you really desperately to not break the molds, not shake the boat, all those different kinds of things. The whole universe is trying to set you up for being part of a system. If you look at it inside of one organism like a human, we're the weird hair that grows the wrong way on your, out of your nostril or something like that. Whatever's not falling in line, that's us. So I would say that we are taught quite early on that we should be part of the same bucket as everybody else. There's not a lot of, interestingly enough, only in our fantasy and our entertainment is rugged individualism encouraged. Everywhere else, it is not.
Yeah, it's interesting. You're kind of this whole conversation is slanting a little bit more differently than I expected. You're kind of talking about standing out and being different, and I guess I maybe approach it from the angle of I don't want to say apathy, but just the idea of not wanting to get out of our own way, I guess.
Sure. Well, comfort. I mean, we're creatures who seek comfort, and we like to avoid pain. So those two things together, more comfort and pleasure, less pain, that allows for a lot of atrophy in life. And so there's a lot of circumstances in which it's easier to stay on the couch. It's easier to do the thing that we already know how to do. It's easier to, even if they're poor results, accept those poor results. And I just think that there's a lot more opportunities out there. I love, there's this picture I've seen going around that's like a Venn diagram, but it doesn't really connect. So it's two circles, and over here is comfort, and over here is awesome. And the point is pretty simple. You can't touch awesome, while being in the circle of comfort. And I mean, that's true. Jacqueline and I just completed a Spartan race this last weekend, and there is surely not a great deal of comfort in there. Like, you're in a weird event where the running is the fun part. Like, thank God I'm running right now because I got to save up some energy before I jump on those ropes.
Do you think it's the fear of being that guy or that girl? When I say that, being that fitness guy or that nutrition guy, or just that person that you never really thought you wanted to be, but you as you're finding out you might need to be to achieve some of these things. Is it or is it that super organized analytical guy? Is it maybe part of that?
It's tricky to rock a rhyme, but it is also tricky to try to want to be any specific that guy. It is very difficult to hold on to any particular identity, and I write about that sometimes by talking about pirate ships versus the fleet. Pirate ships just want to go after the gold. They don't really care what ship they're on. They don't care what color the masts are. They don't have maneuvers that they practice. They just go get gold. And so I've always wanted to be that. I've always wanted to be the pirate king, not the person who cared what color the masts were. And so I would say that I'm very willing to be a different person because a lot of the core of who I am just comes out in different ways as I expose different angles to me. Tori Amos had an old song, it's just pieces of me you've never seen. They're all there, you just don't quite notice them at first.
And I kind of want to take some of my personal examples, some of my observations from kind of the way that you've kind of changed just in my short time, following. I'm sure that there's other areas, and I want to get into that in a minute. But first off, just I think maybe 4 to 6 months ago, that seems probably a bit exaggerated, but you used to, in every email that you were pitching something, you would put the tagline "Sell. You wrote an email saying that you're not doing that anymore. Basically explained it. And then also you just talked about the Spartan race and your kind of whole health quest. Those are kind of two big areas to me that you've kind of said, listen, I'm doing something different because I think I need to be doing it this way now. It's more responsible. It's what I have to do. Kind of talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that a lot of these revelations have come through a few different places. One of them was releasing my book, The Freaks Shall Inherit the Earth. I mean, that book is about dare to be who you really are, and that book is about how do you make that into real business. And so I realized I really had to kind of walk that talk. And there were certain areas in my life that I wasn't quite. And, running a group called Owner, where I'm trying to help people figure out how to own their lives a little better, I had to own the distance between my fork and my mouth. And in regards to the way business went, I really just had to sort of take ownership of what the intentions were. And it's very clear that what I'm doing for you is business related, so why wouldn't I offer to sell you things from time to time? So there's a lot of great opportunities kind of tucked in there, and I'm very happy that I was able to make those changes.
And just kind of looking forward, is there an area that you're maybe not satisfied with? Where's your next area that you think, boy, I should really take a serious look at this? Where do I need to do a little growing up?
That's a great question because I just went over that with Jacqueline today. We just sat down and talked about what are our commitments. We only allow ourselves 5 for the next little while, and one of them was in my self-development, and so mine will be sales. Mine will be how to be a better professional speaker, and mine will be a better deliverer of education, because those are the things that I do. And so my goal was that I could do everything to make good stuff happen. And I think that that's how I'll deliver on that. So that's where I'm going to work on that.
I'm glad you brought up the public speaking, because I followed you for a couple of years now, and I had the opportunity to finally see you speak live back in March in Social Media Marketing World. And I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but I was kind of scared. I was like, man, Chris is kind of schizophrenic when I say you speak live. It's just like you present this very kind of calm and kind of even tone for the most part, but then your your presentation is kind of like, whoa, it's like Chris is bipolar. I'm not sure how to feel about this right now. Is anybody else freaked out? Talk to me about that a little bit, because it was a very, very unique experience.
That's really funny. What a great question, Joey. That is what I would say about that, is that my delivery method at that very specific event was like, I must punch you in the head, because you are in a big, huge surrounding environment of gee whiz and cookies, and there is a lot of, let's hug it out kind of speeches going on, and there's a lot of kind of what's the word I want to say? There's a lot of bombast and shininess being spun around, and I was just like, none of that matters. Like, you have to go right to the guts of this thing. You have to kind of grab the veins of the thing that you want to attack and bite it. And so it was, and I had just come from the Pioneer Nation event, which was a very small entrepreneurial-minded event, 400 or so people, and I had really literally left that event, gone into a cab, got into an airplane, flew right to San Diego, got out of the plane into a cab and into that venue, and walked onto the stage. There was I got to pee. That was about the only thing that I did, that I didn't just list, and that was it. And so I had an agenda, I had a mindset. I wanted people to wake up and just be like, it is not about the tools, it's not about the tools, it's not about the tools, it's this. And so I knew I needed to deliver with a certain kind of energy, and it wasn't that it's not who I am, it's just that a lot of times I hold that back a lot more. In sort of my Buddhist nature, I don't try to go crazy. I'm not Gary Vaynerchuk, so I try not to, spittle doesn't usually tend to come out of me, but I was kind of spittly that day.
Well, I guess the life lesson there is don't overbook your schedule if you don't want to be schizophrenic, I guess. Is that
good plan?
Good plan?
Yeah.
All right. Now we're going to turn the tables a little bit. One of my favorite parts here in the show, we're going to have you ask our audience, your audience, whoever it is that you want to kind of speak to, ask a fearless question yourself to them, something that you have maybe always wanted to know the answer to but have been too afraid or wasn't really sure how to go about asking it in the right way. What would that be?
Let's go with this one, because this is a question I think needs answering more often than not. What the hell is holding you back? Why are you, aiming for something average? I mean, this show is about being fearless. Why are you? What are your if-onlys, and what are your they won't let me's that are still between you and actually doing the thing you're going to do? You're going to die. I mean, that's the absolute truth in this, is that life is 100%. There's a 100% fatality rate on life. You will die, and so what do you want those years to be like between now and the bed? Between now and that nice soft bit of earth that you're going to get turned into, what would you like? And I wonder who will answer it fearlessly, and who will answer it in some kind of weird way that sort of, I don't know, addresses, well, I hope I get this many followers on Twitter. I hope that we go way past that into something deeper.
So maybe we should come up with a service of somebody who answers the question that way. We could deliver like a large dude to just like open their door and punch him in the face. Can we maybe make that happen? It seems like there's somebody that might already provide that service.
It seems like something you could get on Fiverr.
Yeah. Maybe that's a business we should look into going together. We'll just knock on doors and punch people in the face if they want Twitter followers. No, but seriously though, we'll see if anybody wants to respond to that and try and be fearless and give Chris a response while we're sitting here talking today. But kind of want to move into this kind of ownership thing that you are on now, and the big thing about it is it's not just about one thing. It's about more of a mindset across a lot of different areas. And like you said, in our little chat briefly leading up to this, it's throwing a lot of people off when you kind of toss in the health and the things like that. Kind of briefly just go into that a little bit, and we'll follow up a little bit more just on that.
Well, so in the ownership mindset, the whole concept is you really have to own your choices, own your life, and own your future. That's the only way business is going to work for you. And the point is that a lot of times we have some aspects of our life really nailed down, and a lot of times we have other aspects that are just sort of thrown into the wind. And I've been looking around our lifestyle, and besides you, there's a lot of people out there that are getting wider and wider and wider because we're all mostly paid to sit still in seats. You know what I mean? We're paid to sit as still as we can so we can create more and more content for the evil web. And I think that what I wanted to do with the fitness and health part of it was just say, look, you've got to use this body to carry your brain around to different places. It's not yet Futurama, so we need the whole body until we can put your head in a glass jar. And so you really need to get healthy. And then the other thing that I found was that all along, people are most definitely when they're discovering and rediscovering their bodies, when they're rediscovering their health, what's kind of coming with this is our lessons that will help you in your business pursuits. And that's a horrendously big discovery, and I think a useful one.
And I completely agree. I think, like I said, I think the people that, connect these dots for people and understand, that importance are really going to be the ones that kind of went out towards the end here. And let's do a little, maybe some role playing. I don't know. Let's just see what we can do here. But give us an example of somebody not owning something.
Oh, I mean, anytime the words "they won't let me" come out of anyone's mouth, there's a pure example. Or, I don't know, I've just really never been given the opportunity. Those kinds of sentences are the opposite of ownership. Oh, but you're a New York Times best-selling author. Well, I wasn't. I got the opportunity to be one by working really damn hard. And, there's all these things that people say, but you're Chris Brogan. Yep, and I used to not be. I used to be just Chris Brogan. And then one day I became Chris Brogan. And even that, I mean, it's not like people get out of the way for me at airports. It's not like,
Well, and I think that's important because it depends on what circles you're running in. Because I could say Chris Brogan is somebody that, I hang out with in my neighborhood, and they're like, who's that guy?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just like, but I mean, to me, it's like, hey, it's Chris Brogan. I high five him, give him a hug if I had the opportunity. But I think it's all about perspective too.
It is, and I always say that I love being internet famous. I'd hate to be Brad Pitt famous because I mean that guy can't really go anywhere. I mean he can't really have a regular life. I have a very regular life. I do my own laundry. You know what I mean? Sometimes I pay this nice lady, but sometimes I just do it myself. And I could go to the grocery store and I don't get 400 photos of me taken. So it's a good thing. But I would say that where that goes next, or where people can do something with their lives, is they can stop making those sentences. Stop using they. Stop thinking about, oh, but I'm this. Oh, but I had a bad past. I know someone who's done so much more than you who has so much less than you. So you can't use that example anymore.
I like the internet famous example because I want to tell a very quick story of one of my brief encounters with you out in social media marketing. We already used this joke, so if people watch the previous show, I'm going to reuse it because I don't have that much material. But I tried to escort you across the lobby at the Grand Hyatt, I believe, in San Diego to go to a Google Plus Hangout in real life. I'm not aggressive by nature, and I'm no one to tell Chris Brogan where to go or what to do. So I kindly stood by to watch you get flocked by people, and you literally could not take 3 steps without being approached by somebody to talk or say hi, take a picture or whatever. So one, I mean, you must be very good at taking 3 steps at a time. First off.
It's tricky. I have the weirdest experience with this. Like I stopped going to South by Southwest because of that. Because all I felt like is if they just put a cardboard cutout of me, a lot of people would be just as happy because they just want the photo. Like it's like I don't know. It's like bingo or something. Click photo with Chris Brogan, and then they go find Guy Kawasaki and do the same thing, right? Like they didn't talk to me. Well, like I just get to smell their perfume, and that's about it.
And that's fantastic because I think that person is the exact person that I wanted to do this entire conversation with, because those are the people that are doing what they think is important by snapping a picture with somebody that is important, that is doing important things, and then they just kind of run off to do the next thing.
Right, and nothing gets done. I mean, it's the same thing with reading books. When I started scanning for people talking about my books online, for instance, with trust agents, we told people just tweet reading trust agents and we'll reply to you. And by the way, I don't look for that anymore. I used to. But, I mean, the book's from 2009. But I would see this instead. Just read trust agents, now going to go read, Crush It. Just read this, now going to read this. And I felt like, do something. Like I'm not saying any of those books are bad. I'm not saying that my book should change your universe, but do something with the damn book. I have books that are on my desk because I use them over and over and over again until I feel like I've really gotten all the guts and the lessons out of it, and people don't do that evidently.
Yeah, I mean that's the same thing with basically anything, podcasts or blog. I mean, people just go through it, just rip through it, and they never actually think to implement or kind of actually even just take time to put their own original thoughts over top of it, which is a little terrifying. Actually, it's a lot more terrifying to me than it needs to be. But we do have a pretty decent answer here to your fearless question from Laura B. Williams. I want to kind of highlight here. She says, here is a very truthful answer. When you are told that your life is limited, you become fearless. It worked for her. So that seems pretty in line with kind of what you're saying. Other good comments from Brian Shea and others coming in. But I want to get back to the idea of doing the thing and and actually figuring out where you need to go. And it seems like people that haven't yet come to this realization are just okay defining insanity on a daily basis. What do you say to that?
It's amazing more and more how people are saying to me, man, this GPS isn't working. And I say, what's wrong? And they're like, it's not telling me where to go. And I'm like, oh, did you plug in a destination? And they're like, oh, what's that about? That's what people are all doing with their lives. They're all, I'm so mad I'm not successful, people will say. I'm like, oh, cool. What's your definition of success?
Yeah.
I don't know, probably a big house and something. And, I would listen to these two guys walking down the street in front of me. I was walking along. I wanted to walk all the way to their house because I was just fascinated by their conversation. They were discussing which BMW they wanted. And what's really weird is I had, through another project I'm working on, I just qualified to get a BMW. And I can have anyone I want, any BMW. And I was just, besides I think the M series or whatever, because that's ridiculous. And so I was thinking, it's really weird that these two 19-year-olds are discussing the future in terms of what car would make them cool. And that I'm walking along behind them like an idiot, with that checkbox checked, and I'm not even getting one. I just like my Camaros too much, and these things that we need to define ourselves by, we need to better understand them. I had somebody tell me they wanted this kind of a business and they wanted to travel the world, and I said, but that kind of business makes you sit still. You must be in that place to run that business. It's not a traveler's business. And they were like, oh, so the average person has no clue what success is, and then they're wondering why they're not making it there. So I think we all need really better maps. We need way better missions, and then we need the game that gets us from the mission to the daily action of the map. That's kind of what I've learned.
And I kind of want to finish things up here with, we talked a little bit earlier about the couple of examples that I pulled out, but I'm sure that there's a really good example that none of us have seen or know about of a real kind of turning point when you kind of flipped your own growing up switch. What would that be?
Oh my gosh, every day. I went to a course fairly recently run by Tamsin Webster. She's at Tamadeer on Twitter, and her company's called Eradium, and they teach advanced communications. So I'm sitting in that class feeling all kinds of resistance. I'm a professional speaker. I've written 8 books now. I shouldn't have to be in an advanced communications class, but I opted for this, and it's a $2,000 course. I would have paid $100,000 for what I learned. It's going to be worth $1 million what I learned, and it's one of those times though to grow up. Today was a time to grow up. I was reading Brian Tracy's book No Excuses about commitments and stuff. Grant Cardone's book Sell or Be Sold, again about making commitments and then discarding all other data now that you've committed to the one path. And I would say that I've been growing up more in the last 90 days than I have in the last 4 years. So it never ends. I mean, that's the other thing too. People think success is kind of a linear thing, you get success and then you just keep going. But if you're doing it right, you fail a lot again. And I'm a few months past some of the worst failure I've had in my business ever, and now I'm heading back into good stuff again. And I think that to be fearless and to answer fearless questions is to realize that you are going to have horrendous lows on the way to those even better highs.
I'm going to push you a little bit harder on that. I'm going to ask you to go back to maybe a time, like you said, before you were Chris Brogan, and what that growing up moment looked like.
Oh my gosh, there's been so many. That's the thing. I mean,
give me one good one. That's all I'll ask for.
When I chose at one of my old phone company jobs to do something that wasn't really part of the menu, and when I decided that was just going to be part of what I delivered, and when I realized that the universe didn't fight that, I realized that I had command and authority power over others because just other people just were sitting there like sheep in the cage. And I just realized that the more times I asserted a perspective, not necessarily the right one, just a perspective, that people would react to it and realign and shift to match that perspective. And I've used that secret magic power multiple times in the last several years, and it endlessly works, Joey, because everyone's just sitting around waiting for someone to come and lead, and it's been a beautiful thing.
And I'm glad you said it, because I want to wrap it up with this. The whole people are just waiting around. People will say, "Oh, you're going to talk to Chris Brogan," or "Oh, you are Chris Brogan," or this, that, or the other. It's like this kind of strange pseudo. I don't even know what to call it. If I knew what to call it, I would be smarter than that. But I don't know what to call it. And whatever it is, it's a very strange thing to me for somebody that would not say, "Listen, I'm approaching you as somebody that is a human, and I have the potential to do just as many things if I actually want to." I mean, I'm not even explaining it even close to properly because it just came to me. But do you understand what I'm getting at with this?
No.
You look confused. All right, so like, have you ever had somebody? All right, so like you and maybe me, you approach people and you're not really necessarily all that afraid. I guess I would call it starstruck, if you would.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And that's a terrible word. I don't like that word, but
Are you talking about when I'm starstruck or when they're starstruck?
When people are just feel like they are not at all worthy to share a piece of bread with somebody or whatever.
I try really hard when it's in the direction of they think they're not worthy to be with me. I try to fart like as fast as I can. I try to let out some awful noxious odor and be like, "Wow, I'm so just like you." And that's the thing is I really think that there's a lot of times where we just think that someone's. I mean, I have taken pictures with people that they're vibrating with fear, and I'm just like, oh, if you really knew, like you would just be like, this is like my next door neighbor, it's not like somebody important. And when I've met like really famous people, billionaires and stuff like that, they're the same. They're absolutely just regular people. There's very few people in life who are insanely larger than life. We don't usually get to meet those people, and no matter what. So I would say that, always know that you're worth it. Always know that everybody's worth it. And that if you approach with confidence, but not arrogance, you'll always be well received. And, in my case, I can't vouch for everybody. In my case, when you approach scared as hell and feel like you're not worthy, I'll do everything in my power to actually equalize that, usually with a bodily odor.
Those are words to live by. Chris, I want to thank you for taking the time. It's been spectacular. Obviously, what do you want people to do? Where do you want people to go? Where can they find more of you? I mean, there's obviously a lot.
There's a lot of me. Go to chrisbrogan.com. It just got redesigned, so it looks so pretty. Rafal Tamal over at Copyblogger Media made it. So go over there and look at chrisbrogan.com. And while you're there, grab my newsletter, because you can hit reply to that, and I'll write right back to you. So you can carry on the conversation one-on-one, just like you did today with Joey and me.
All right, Chris. Well, thank you very much. I do appreciate it. And if you want to get Chris's answer to what fearless question he's most afraid to ask himself, we went ahead and recorded that before this whole thing. Just head on over to fearlesslyquestioning.com. I'll drop a link in the event description. It'll be linked up in wherever we're going to link it on this thing. So, but do appreciate Chris for taking the time. I appreciate everybody stopping by and spending the time with us as well. Chris, thanks a lot again. Hey, we'll take it easy, guys.
My pleasure.